lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm going to be doing a video that's going to look to address some of the lack of diversity on my bookshelves. So at the moment, race is a very big discussion that is happening across the world as peaceful protests have been gathering all over the world in response to the murder of George Floyd and police brutality within the US. Off the back of this, it's then opened up to a much wider discussion about race and systematic racism in general across the world, and within the booktube community there's been a discussion about the lack of diversity in a lot of people's both subscription feeds and the authors that they read. There have been many black booktubers making videos expressing their anger and frustration at this lack of diversity from a lot of watchers, and it really made me go and critically assess both the content that I was watching on booktube but also the books that I was reading, and realise that I have created an echo chamber for myself that really favours white voices over any others. And this is something which it shouldn't have taken this long for me to notice, but I can't go back in time and change that fact. What I can do now is acknowledge that this is something that I have done by not prioritising other voices, and in doing so I can make some steps to change that. So I've been going and watching a lot of stuff, checking out a load of books, reading a bunch of things, and basically have a list of books that I'm going to be reading over the next 6 months, because we're kind of halfway through the year, that I want to prioritise on my bookshelves that are by black authors. Now, this is not the sum total of all the books on my bookshelf that are by black authors, nor will it be the sum total of books that I read by black authors, but actually one thing that I do on this channel, and one thing that a lot of us do on booktube, is we make lists of TBRs and then we share them with our subscribers. So like I've done with when I've tried to read more classics or non-fiction or anything like that, I've set myself a list of particular authors or books that I want to get to, and this is what this is going to be. So hopefully this is both a combination of, it's going to help to keep me accountable to make a change in my reading habits and in my watching habits. Hopefully it will also bring some attention to some books for you as a viewer who you might not have seen some of these before. Some of these are very popular, you all know them already, and it will encourage me to continue to critically assess what exactly it is that I'm engaging with. So let's jump in to all the books. The first book that I have, and I bought this on ebook form I believe, is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This is a novella which is kind of like a mermaid story basically, and what it is there's a particular kind of species of mermaid which are the descendants of the pregnant slaves who were thrown overboard in the transatlantic slave trade. Now, they don't actually have any memories of their past, but there is one person in their community who is the memory holder for all of the painful memories, and they once a year have to go through, I believe, a traumatic experience of kind of remembering all of this stuff. And our main character is this particular woman in the community, and she decides basically one year that she's done, she can't do this anymore, and she just bounces. So this looks like it's going to be really fantastic. The idea of mermaids is like the mermaid aspect of it sounds really good, and this is one that's been on my radar for a little bit, but I've finally got around to actually buying it and going to read it soon. I believe it also has queer representation, but I don't know exactly in what form. I've got, in typical form for me, a really weird blend of genres of fiction and non-fiction on this list, because of course you wouldn't expect anything less. And on the note of non-fiction, we have Hidden Figures by Margot Shetterly. This is about the African American women who were involved in the space race and the work that they did to help America get on the moon. It has been made into a movie. This is the movie tie-in cover, and now my camera is freaking out trying to focus on the number of faces that are now in this shot. I'm slightly bummed out that I've got the movie cover. I've seen the movie, I really enjoyed it. I know it has some issues with the white saviour trope, but this one looks like it's going to be really cool and really good fun. I love space stuff. I really enjoyed Mary Roach's Packing for Mars that I read earlier on this year. I really enjoyed some of the kind of more spacey sci-fi stuff that's out there, so this is one that I'm super psyched to get to really soon. And I love the whole point that, like, human computers, that's where the name computer comes from. It's really cool. Another non-fiction, this time one that is a bit more political in nature, is We Were 8 Years in Power by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This is looking at the 8 years that Barack Obama was president in the United States, and a discussion of America and racism within that framework, and then also leading up to Trump getting power. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a very well-known author who writes both fiction and non-fiction, and is hugely popular, is ending up on lots of lists at the moment. This is the one that drew me the most because my understanding of modern politics is fairly shaky at best, and that's something that I have decided I really want to try and change in the coming months, to try and understand what's going on a global perspective a bit more. So this one looks really interesting. I also really enjoy this cover, like this is very striking, so this is going to be very interesting, but I'm assuming will be a little heavy going, so probably not the highest priority of all the list. The next author I want to talk about, and I'm just going to talk generally about her as an author rather than any particular book, is Alyssa Cole. Alyssa Cole is a primarily romance writer, but I believe she's actually coming out with a thriller this year, and she seems to be a bit of a genre-bending, cross-genre kind of writer. Her most popular one at the moment, I believe, is the Reluctant Royalist series, which is your very classic kind of contemporary romance focused on, as the name suggests, royalty and the like romances within royalty. She also has one though that is about a woman falling in love with an artificial intelligence program, and that one sounds really cool and right up my street when it comes to sort of that weird blend of like soft sci-fi, and kind of reminds me of some of the discussions that were had in A Close and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. So I believe I picked that one up on Kindle already. If not, I'm going to do it soon, and that one I'm keen for quite soon. But Alyssa Cole is one that I can imagine I'm going to read a fair amount of, because again, like I said, her Reluctant Royalist series super popular, and I've been on a really like contemporary romance kick lately, which doesn't seem to be dying, so expect to see more contemporary romance on this channel for a while. Like I said, I just read all over the place, don't I? Looping back to non-fiction, and this time a history book, I would like to get to They Were Her Property, White Women as Slave Owners in the American South by Stephanie E. Jones-Rogers. This one is looking specifically, as the subtitle suggests, about white women slave owners and the effect that they had on the slave trade in America. There's a tendency when looking at history to definitely focus on the white man and to kind of absolve the white woman of any particular guilt in this, and it's something which I think it's going to be really interesting to learn about and read about. This was on a Goodreads list, so I'm assuming that it's going to be on a fair number of people's radars at the moment, but it definitely ties in again with my love of history and wanting to read more history. Then an absolutely iconic classic when it comes to non-fiction memoirs is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This one is the first in a series of autobiographies that Maya Angelou has written, and is just absolutely iconic when it comes to kind of classic non-fiction, which actually loops really nicely with something I was saying a couple of months back of when I was reading The Voyage of the Beagle by Charles Darwin, that it was something that I wanted to try and do, was to read some more of those iconic classic non-fictions to kind of blend my goals of non-fiction and classics together. So this would be classed as definitely more of a modern classic, but is one that, you know, still is applicable, and I'm really interested in reading it. The last non-fiction on this list is So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijoma Oluwu. This is again looking at racism in America. This is a fairly American-centric TBR specifically for the non-fiction history side of things. It's just the stuff that's on my radar at the moment. I know that there are some things for British history out there that I am also interested in, but these are the ones that I am kind of prioritizing right now. So don't worry, I will still obviously be reading some stuff specifically about my country, not just about America. There's not a crazy amount to say about this one other than it's been on a lot of people's lists and is definitely being mentioned alongside things like Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race or How to Be an Anti-Racist. Some of the really iconic, classic, need to read books about racism and how to be an anti-racist, basically. It's sold out everywhere at the moment, which is wicked, so I'm going to wait until it comes back into stock so that I can then support more of the local independent bookstores rather than grabbing it on Kindle. So I won't get to it anytime soon because I'm going to need to wait for it to be available again, but it's one that I definitely do want to read. Now we're coming to a couple of books that have been on my bookshelf for a while and have been languishing a little bit, and one of these I've actually even started before and then never got around to finishing, and the corner is still turned in it, I've just spotted. This is Rosewater by Potala Thompson. This is a very cool sci-fi, I believe it's book one of a trilogy, and it is about some kind of alien, that was it. It's an alien biodome in Nigeria in 2066, and I actually started this on audiobook now comfortably over a year ago towards the end of some like 24 in 48 hour readathon thing, but I think the book suffered because it was something that I started towards the end of this huge reading binge and my brain was just like super saturated and I couldn't take in all the world building, so I wasn't really engaging with the text particularly. So I marked it as DNF return to on my Goodreads, and it's one that I've been meaning to get around to coming back to when I've kind of got a clean slate and able to focus again on the world building that goes into it. So now is as good a time as any. I'm really excited about this one. I definitely enjoyed the bits of it that I did listen to, but I knew I was missing bits and I didn't think that that was fair on the author or the story. I got really far through this, That's bad. Another one that's been on my shelves for a little while that I really want to get round to is Everfair by Ta-Nehisi. This is a reimagining of what would have happened when Belgium colonised the Congo if the native populations had access to more advanced technology, and I believe it's kind of riffing off of sort of a steampunky kind of vibe because it was in the reign of King Leopold, so it's a historical fiction but pulling in all sorts of funky steampunk elements. The cover is stunning. I don't know a crazy amount more about it, and I've never really heard many people talk about it, but I think it's going to be definitely an interesting read. And then the final one that has been on my radar for an absolute century, and I think you'd have to live under a rock to not have heard about this author, and I've been meaning to read, and my mate has been shouting at me to read for a while, is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is book one of the Broken Earth trilogy, I believe, and it's a high fantasy, which N.K. Jemisin does write a fair amount of. I have been umming and ahhing about whether to pick up this one or the 100 Years Inheritance trilogy, but like I said, my mate Catherine has finished this recently, and we were chatting on the phone the other day, and she was like, you have to read it so I can talk to you about it. So I finally picked myself up a copy. Oh Jesus. Okay, words are hard today apparently. I have a version of it. Look, I've got it in my hand and I'm going to read it. There we go, that's all you needed to know from that. So those are 10 books that I'm going to read by the end of 2020 that are by Black authors. If you have any other recommendations, please do chuck them down below. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Have a wonderful reading week, and I will chat to you soon. Bye guys!